Good morning, everyone. I'm John Colmel, chair of this distinguished group. Pleased to welcome my fellow trustees, Trainer McKibben and Nicandri. Trustees Balboni, Crescent, Vicente were unable to be with us today and have been officially excused. As always, welcome Gil and his outstanding team. In particular, two official welcomes to the newest members of the team. Adam Barsky's back, I think, for his first official meeting. He was a guest last time around, and we have a new guest today in terms of Yves Noel, our new leader of the strategy team, and Yves, we're excited to have you join us as well. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
This is our regularly scheduled meeting, which has always been duly noticed, and hence I'm pleased to call the joint meeting to order. As always, the proposed agenda was distributed well in advance. We've all had a chance to take a look at it. Unless there's any thoughts or recommendations for amendment, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, and the agenda has been approved. As we typically do, we'll start the initial portion of our meeting in executive session, and we'll be back with everyone as quickly as possible. To do so, I'd ask for a motion to conduct an executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation, the employment of a particular person or corporation pursuant Section 105 of the Public Officers Law.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. We will adjourn to executive session. Thank you very much. We'll be back with you shortly. Our customary list of contractors was circulated to all of us well in advance. Most of us didn't have any conflicts. Those have otherwise been noticed. Any changes to what you've otherwise advised Karen? We're otherwise good to go. Consent agenda. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review that. Many of the customary requests and motions and approvals are included. If I could ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any questions for anyone relative to anything in the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. All right. Our discussion agenda. Mr. President and CEO, please kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Board of Trustees.
Using the kickoff metaphor, since the Bills are 3-0, so I just want to put that on.
Exactly. I'm a New York Giants fan, so that's not included in the agenda.
Not in New York, anyway. You know, Buffalo 3-0, representing the state very well. So. All right.
Moving on. I usually start with our scorecard. We're doing
3-0 on our scorecard.
I know.
We're all green. I think the Giants, at least yellow. If
you gotta watch Danny Dimes. We gotta watch Danny Dimes. So we're doing well. The two yellows, one is greenhouse gas. That's just a timing issue. We expect to meet that goal by the end of the year. The dart rate, I will leave that to Joe Kessler to walk you through that.
Jets and Giants.
As you know, we've been working on our new strategy. We call it Vision 2030, what NYPA ought to be come 2030. There are really just to review, three drivers on why we're developing a new strategy. As you know, just earlier this year under Governor Cuomo, our state passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, the most aggressive climate change legislation in any jurisdiction. So we are going to be a big player and a big part and contributor to advancing the goals of that legislation. There have been also tremendous amount of changes, especially lowering cost in the area of renewable energy. Solar is becoming cheaper, onshore wind, offshore wind, now battery storage. So technology is really driving the adoption and the penetration of renewable energy into the power system. Most importantly, though, is our customers. Customers are starting to make their own commitments to responding to the climate crisis. Very appropriate this week. It's a climate week. Just last week, students were all over the world. We're on a climate strike. So the temperament and the motivation of the citizenry is really growing more and more interest in responding to the climate crisis and in sustainability. And those are the drivers that we took into account when we did our plan. After my report, Doug McMahon will be presenting to you a more detailed update on where we are in our planning process. So we started this earlier this year. We are now, that first red triangle, a review of the first draft of our strategic vision. We plan to complete that by our December board meeting. So between now and then, we would like to engage the board in a more detailed way to get your input, to get your perspectives, and be integrated into that plan. In parallel, between now and our March annual meeting, we will be creating our business cases so that by our annual meeting, we will then go to you for allocation of investments in our strategic initiative. So that's kind of the timeline. As you will see here on the bottom, our team led by Doug, have been going around our sites and engaging our employees, getting their input into our strategic plan. So this has been a really very extensive involvement and engagement from our employees. Pivoting to initiative, very, very exciting initiative. We had the governor established a task force last May to start thinking about what should be done with the New York State canals. There were 3 subcommittees created under the task force, the Western New York, Central New York, and Mohawk Valley sub-task force or subcommittees. It is led by overall, the task force is led by chair of the Thruway, Joni Mahoney, who used to be our vice chair here at the Power Authority. And then we also have leaders in those 3 regions. In Western New York, it's Bob Duffy, a former lieutenant governor, and on the Mohawk Valley, Joe Martens, former DEC commissioner, and Joni wears 2 hats. She also chairs the subcommittee for Central New York. We made sure that we're reaching out to the various communities along the Canal corridor, and we partnered with Rockefeller Institute, one of the SUNY think tanks, to help us in that process, and also to establish a website so that we can get all the ideas and inputs from all the citizens who are especially those who live close to and along the canals. There were 5 community outreach meetings. Hundreds of people participated in each of the meeting. And again, in addition to the meetings, we have this website that's still open to make sure that we cast a wide net and we get all the ideas from New Yorkers about how to reimagine the canals. So that's where we are. The plan is for us to have the task forces evaluate all the options on what's possible in each of those regions. We will vet the ideas with the relevant agencies and stakeholders, make sure we got them right, and then sometime in the first quarter, we'll bring bring the recommendations to you for your review and approval.
So first quarter of next year, we should have better clarity on the path forward. So as we look ahead, beginning of 2020, we'll do that with better purpose than we have at the moment.
That's correct. So right now, it's still really, we're just in the middle of reviewing options. Nothing really has been decided. We're vetting them. We make sure that we meet with all of the relevant stakeholders, that we vet them with all the agencies, that we review them with the state government and the governor's office. So we'll do all of that homework, and then once it's ready, we'll engage the board along the way, but bring it for formal initial recommendations and formal approval to you first quarter of next year.
Okay, look forward to that. No question.
That's my report. If I can ask Doug to come up and give us some more.
Before Doug comes up, any other questions
Yes.
for Gil? I mean, as you look ahead to end of year and so we wrap up the year, as you start to look ahead and plan for 2020, any perspectives for the top of the house that give you pause, concern, or energy or focus?
Well, we're excited. I think we're going to finish strong this year, and we have already begun planning for our budget next year. We will review that with you between now and December, but there's a lot ahead of us. The legislation, the CLCPA, the climate change legislation that was passed early this year, will provide a lot of opportunities for us to really lean in and to accelerate our efforts. And you will hear that from Doug as we tell you what strategies we're starting to think about into next year. So we're excited. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of exciting work to do next year.
Okay. Any questions for Gil? All right, great. Thanks very much, Gil. Doug? How are you?
Good, thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vision 2030. So we're now at a pivotal point in the evolution of both the economy and the electricity industry. As Gil mentioned, there are key forces changing our business environment, and this provides unique opportunity for an entity like NYPA to help create the next generation electricity grid and address one of the greatest challenges facing mankind in the 21st century, to build a thriving, clean energy economy while mitigating the influence of global warming and climate change on society. Very few places of work have the opportunity to position true social value and impact at the heart of their business, and as we'll talk about today, NYPA is already well positioned to continue the vital role it has played in the development of the Empire State over the last 50 years or so. So I'm delighted to spend the next 10 minutes introducing some of the key themes that we hope to see being included in Vision 2030, the next generation of the authority's strategic plan. Over the last 6 months, we've spoken with over 250 NYPA employees and external industry experts as we work out how NYPA should respond to the changes that are taking place in our business environment. So we've undertaken strategic planning workshops, scenario planning workshops. We've visited each NYPA site twice, and we're planning a third later in the fall. The plan is still work in progress, as Gil mentioned. After we've introduced some of the key themes today, we'll be offering the opportunity for the trustees to review and comment on the plan later in October. The objective laid out to us by Governor Cuomo is to move our energy system from one that is currently based on reliability and affordability to one that is still affordable and reliable, but also clean, and to do so in the next 30 years. This transition will not be easy. Thankfully, many of the clean technologies, products and services required to enable decarbonisation are already being deployed. Solar, wind, transmission, short duration storage, EVs, and energy efficiency, but to name a few. Yet these solutions will not be enough to decarbonise fully the energy system. We're still missing at least one new form of controllable carbon-free generation to fill in for extensive periods when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. We also need cost-effective solutions to electrify buildings, longer duration storage, and advanced software and data solutions to optimally manage the supply and demand of the grid. Furthermore, the electricity system, as you can see behind me, will become increasingly critical in the successful decarbonisation of other parts of the economy. with electrification being the most likely solution for cleaning up the transportation and building sectors. With the right technological breakthroughs, getting to an 85% decarbonised economy by 2050 is achievable. The real challenge facing the industry is how do we achieve this while maintaining affordability and reliability for our customers? Now, the good thing is that in NIPA, the state has a strong foundation from which to pursue its decarbonisation ambitions. As you can see in the slide behind me, NIPA is already using low-cost, clean, reliable power to create jobs, capital investment, and a thriving economy. So what does this mean for Vision 2030? And what is going to be different about this plan? What separates this edition of our strategic plan from ones that have come before it? Well, Vision 2030 will place the customer's path to a thriving decarbonised economy at its centre. And just to be clear, this is not the same as placing utilities' journey to decarbonisation at the heart of its strategic plan, and I believe makes NIPA's plan different from others in the industry. We believe that by looking at decarbonisation through the eyes of those who we serve will ensure that we align our success to their success. So in Vision 2030, we're therefore going to set some specific outcomes that we want to achieve in partnership with our customers between now and 2030. And we're also going to outline how we will work with our customers to act as a first mover for exciting and necessary new clean technologies and products, leading by example in the areas of innovation and commercialization in order to accelerate the scaling of clean energy technologies across the state. Now, the first step to placing the customer at the centre of 2030 is to better understand how their relationship with the electricity grid is going to change over the next 10, 15 years. So in particular, over the last 6 months, we've identified 4 key areas that the customer is likely to have to navigate carefully in the future. So the first of these is how they're going to interact with an electricity grid that is more complex and presents greater choice to the customer. The second is to explore opportunities that can optimize the way they consume electricity. In a previous presentation, I've talked about this notion that we need to, in the future, do a better job of managing demand and the way we consume electricity to the natural behaviors of intermittent renewables. We're also going to have to integrate new forms of electricity load, as I've talked about, such as transportation and buildings. And finally, help our customers optimally manage the cost of cleaning up their end-to-end energy consumption. So one way to think of these areas is that they help us provide strong direction for the content of Vision 2030. Now, arguably the most important section of the Vision 2030 plan focuses on how we will define and measure success. Our strategic goals are our North Star, the measures we will use to determine the impact of the investments that we make over the next 10 years. NIPA should and will continue to measure critical operational metrics, measures that define the health of our business and gauge our capacity to do great things for our customers. But it is the introduction of 3 customer impact goals that we are particularly excited about. Measuring the impact of our investments on the extent to which we're helping our customers decarbonize their businesses and operations, the effectiveness of every dollar we are investing, and the jobs we are creating, the capital investments that we're making, and the investments that we're also making in environmental justice and sustainability. We're also proposing 5 strategic investment areas, so areas that we will invest in to help us realize those 3 strategic goals I just talked about. Within these areas, NIPA will make a series of investments, some no-regret investments that will pan out in all eventualities, and some big bets that position NIPA and our customers as a first mover. As you can see, most of these themes build on existing investments that NIPA has been making over the last 5 to 10 years. And for me, it lends itself to the conclusion that Vision 2030 is not necessarily going to require a fundamental shift in who NIPA is and what it does. It's really about continuing to build a greater focus around our customer. As Gil explained earlier, we're going to spend more time over the next 6 months defining what investments we're going to make in each of these 5 themes. And then finally, with Vision 2030 being deliberately focused on the customer, we recognise the importance of tying our strategic plan back to those who work at the authority, so that hopefully each employee understands their role in the delivery of our ambitions. With that in mind, we're proposing to add 3 sections to the Vision 2030 strat plan that demonstrate the link between our mission, vision, goals, and strategies and those who work at NIPA. So the first of those sections will be a section around NIPA's uniqueness, which lays out the unique characteristics and qualities that NIPA brings to the electricity system here in New York. We talk about these things a lot internally at NIPA. I think it's time that we started to express those a little bit more externally. The second section will focus on in-flight and recently completed case study projects that clearly link back to delivering affordable, clean, reliable electricity to our customers. And then finally, we're going to have a section that outlines the regional impact that NIPA's operations have across the state of New York, focusing on economic development and decarbonisation impacts in the communities that we operate. Next steps will be to solicit feedback from you, the trustees, on the proposed content of Vision 2030, and following that, we'll provide a further update later in the year. That's all I have for you today. I'll take any questions.
Doug, aside from waiting for a lightning strike, are we participating in research and development and coming up with what is needed to fill the gap for the 2030 vision or the 2050 vision, whatever?
So I think we're already doing some good things in that space, particularly around our digitization efforts and some of the investments we're making in the moonshot initiatives, to name a few. But I think there's more to come there. As we talk about NIPA positioning itself, working with our customers to be a first mover in the industry, that to me is the efforts that we'll be putting in to address some of those areas that are still not yet properly well defined in terms of what a decarbonised future needs to look like. Do you want to add something to that, Gil?
And Judge, you know, there are a couple of things that we have determined probably are going to be needed to get there. For example, long duration storage. And one of our vision is that we will use our assets and we will use our customers' assets to be the test bed. Should those technology start to advance, we will deploy them, use our assets as a test bed so that they can be tested and really then scaled and commercialized from there. So that's our intent as we go forward.
Help me quantify or at least put some context around how radical the change is needed to hit those 2050 targets, the trajectory that we're otherwise on versus where we want to go. I mean, how much more do we need to bend the curve? I mean, how dramatic is this? Significantly dramatic, extremely dramatic, marginally so? I mean, give us some better context, because I don't think there's a full appreciation. I won't say it's easy to put aggressive targets out there, but what it's going to take to hit them. Just trying to create some context here. It's
significant. I mean, there are some good steps being made with the introduction of offshore wind and the targets around that on the gen side, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and 2030 to get the state to 70% renewable electricity consumption. We're around about 24% at the moment. So even if you add in all this offshore wind, you've still got a significant gap to meet between now and 2030, and that's just in one area. And significant is half of the target. I mean, give me some directional.
So right now, the state,
parameters.
as Doug said, the state, we have about 24% renewable energy in our electric supply. Our target or mandate really is 70% by 2030. So in 10 years, we need to as a state, come from 24% to 70%.
So that's switching out 50% of our generation capacity to renewables.
4% improvement.
That's a very
trajectory. Are there sufficient thoughts, ideas, concepts in place to close that gap and achieve that, or we don't know? It's not yet known what can be done to do that.
No, there is a trajectory to get there.
Okay.
What's going to be harder, I believe, is that outer years from 2030 to 2050. To be carbon free by 2040 will require some breakthrough technologies to get there. To be green, carbon neutral economy wide by 2050. Other things have to happen, such as other technologies will have to happen to get there. There are certain sectors that are very hard to decarbonize, such as, industrial plants, airlines, and long duration or long transportation like shipping. Very, very difficult to decarbonize. So a lot of new technologies have to be developed
Are
between
we
now
able
and then.
to play a role there and incubate some of those new technologies as part of this, as opposed to just focus on?
Absolutely, and that's what I mentioned when the judge asked before, that we're uniquely positioned because we can use our assets, whether our generation or substation transmission system or the assets of our customers, as test bed for these technologies as they start getting developed and rolled out. So we intend to be a first mover in trying those technologies out so that those that work can then be deployed by other customers and other utilities across the state.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that, a 26-mile marathon starts with a single step. So unless you're doing that, you're never going to get to the 26-mile marker. So, it behooves you to, if you want to get there, you got to.
It's critical.
At the beginning.
It's critical that we have to decarbonize as quickly as we can, because it will require those breakthrough technologies to then pick up the pace, in the last 20 years.
So one question, sorry, if I could, Chair. One question that I had was, as you look at, we've talked more about what happens after 2030, the leap that we have to make. As you've laid out to get us to 2030, are there things that we're currently doing, because this is a sort of re-upping what your vision or strategy had been, that you see this obviously is aligning us closer, as I read it, to our customers and the consumers of our resources? Are there big things that you think where we need to redirect, where we've focused on? We've got a number of programs that we're running throughout NYPA. Do you see any big changes for what we've already approved or look at that we need to do in order to realize the vision?
So I think we've made some huge steps in the last few years around digitization and the investments that we're making to support decarbonisation of other parts of the economy. So the Evolve investments that we've been making. I could see us making additional investments in areas such as energy efficiency and building heating and helping to decarbonise buildings. So those are two areas that I think we're potentially going to be looking at over the next few months in terms of where we can start to make investments. Gil, and any other areas that you're thinking of?
It's really, we need to accelerate across the board because the targets are so aggressive. Efficiency, our digital investments, efficiency, you're going to see a lot more renewables. We're going to help our customers meet their compliance. So renewables, both distributed solar and large-scale renewables. One of our moonshot is offshore wind will probably play a big role in the transmission part of that. But it's really across the board. We have to accelerate our efforts to meaningfully contribute to our state's goals.
In terms of the status of our current initiatives, our 2020 strategy and our moonshots and the like, it's exciting to talk about ambitious, more elevated targets, an update on where we are relative to the current investments and initiatives.
So I think you're going to see some of the fruits of some of those investments a little bit later today with the ISO 55001 accreditation. So I think we've been making some really strong strides on the generation transmission side. Some of the investments we've been making there over the last 3 to 4 years. The Evolve program is now up and running, and we've landed sites and we're starting to build out at various sites. So we'll be able to provide you guys with an update on that in due course. Okay. So I think we've done well to where we need to get to for 2020. I think what's critical is that over the next 6 months, as we start to build out the investment plans for the next generation of the strat plan, some of them will be an actual continuation of work that's already in progress. So we'll be able to leverage a lot of the good work we've done in digitization and on the smart G&T side of our business. And I think they're going to provide a perfect platform for some of the things we do over the next 10 years.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else for Doug? Doug, thanks very much. Maybe as Doug migrates back, Gil, a good opportunity for you to introduce Eves.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Chairman. Joining us today is our new Senior Vice President of Strategy, Eve Well, and Eve comes from us from the consulting industry. Eve, you may, may say a little bit about yourself. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you as part of our team.
Thank you, Gil. I wanted to start off by introducing myself. I'm Yves Noel, a native New Yorker. I spent the past 15 years in consulting, primarily within the energy, chemicals, and utilities space. Broad background. Most recently, I've been at Oliver Wyman, and I'm excited to join the team.
Great. Well, welcome aboard, Eve. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, I think, is Mr. Kessler on the operations side. Fellow Buffalo Bills supporter, equally proud of our strong start.
Absolutely.
At the expense of the Jets and the Giants. I might have already mentioned that. All right.
Did that come up already? Thank you, Chairman.
This week?
well, my reality check. I see my friend Rob Piacek back there, a big New England fan too. So we won't hold that against you. So as John indicated, we are very, in most areas of our utility operations, we're performing like the Bills, or maybe the Bills are performing like us. A little Giants and Jets is on the dart rate. In all seriousness, that's something we take very serious. You know that. I know we've had your support in the past on that. We do have some initiatives coming up. One of our focus areas this year is going to be around arc flash. We just procured a bunch of fire retardant clothing and arc flash clothing to supplement our working staff that are going to be in the field to protect them from that. And we are going to have a guest speaker come in and have, in a regional way, some stand downs on that to raise awareness on all safety issues, but arc flash specifically. We still have potential to recover this dart, and we hope to do that. We're very optimistic, but we'll keep working on that. So today we have 3 items that I want to touch on from utility operations, 2 are items for the board for approval, and then we want to give you an update on canals. I'm going to ask Phil Toyer, our Senior Vice President of Power Supply, to come up and do that shortly. So the first item we have is something that's familiar to the board. This is our Moses Adirondack Smart Path Reliability Project. This is the one that replaces 78 miles of wood structures for MA 1 and 2, Moses Adirondack 1 and 2, into a single circuit monopole structure. We are designing and installing this to operate at 345 kV, but it will operate in the existing 230 kV. That gives us some potential for growth later on. The Article 7 application was submitted back about 18 months ago in April of 2018, and we are expected to see the certificate from the PSC in November of this year. And this slide we just want to represent to you that this has come to you a number of times before. You have actually authorized funding up to $124 million to date. The overall project is about $438 million, and we are on track on all scheduled items for completion in mid-2023. You've also approved a number of material and service contracts over the last 4 years in excess of about $120 million as well. And we are also going to be expected to come back to you in December for not only approval of the remaining capital projects, since we're on track. We really want to start in 2020, but also some of the contracts that are associated with that as well. So
your 483 continues to be a real number.
So far, a real number, right? We have the contingencies in place for that we need for whether it's metal prices, other contingencies in the project. So we're in good shape. So from an item perspective, right now what we're looking for is a contract to get some laydown areas put in place. So today the trustees are requested to approve an award of a 5-year term contract to Kenny Construction Company in the amount in aggregate of about $11.1 million. That also carries some $1.9 million of contingency in it for risks and change of scope and schedule. The contract is competitively bid, and the most qualified, capable, and best value bidder was Kenny Construction Company based in Chicago. And under this contract, Kenny Construction will set up, manage, and maintain 2 laydown areas, one located in Louisville, New York, and the other in Herman, New York, required for storing, staging, and all material purchased by the authority. So the board is requested to approve the contract for $9.2 million with an additional $1.9 million in contingency for those changes, for a total authorization of $11.1 million. And I'm open to any questions on that.
Well, I had a chance to review, the information, multiple bids. I think Kenny in this case was the low bidder as well. Any questions for Joe? Otherwise, a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Our second item that we have is on called engineering services. This is a mechanism that we use traditionally in utility operations and throughout the organization, actually, where we every 5 years we go out and refresh our list of on-call contractors to react to emergent work or to supplement staff when we have an influx of work for whatever reason, and in some cases to bring in some expertise that we just don't have in-house. So the value contracts are rebid every 5 years, and it's a retainer contract that we use to supplement the staff as discussed. And some of the key projects we anticipate using these contracts for are the Niagara Robert Moses Bridge replacement, Niagara River intake gate assessments, and some of the St. Lawrence water tank replacement project. So with I don't know if they hadn't shared. Oh, there's the item. So what we're asking for today is approval of the 12 on-call value contracts for engineering services of 5-year period at an aggregate of about $25 million. And just by way of background, because I know you are always interested in like the pool of people, we had 23 firms evaluated for the contract. There were 12 chosen, 5 from New York State, and of those 12, two are new to our pool entirely, and one is someone who has done other work for us, but would be new to this kind of work for us.
Of the 23, Joe, were all of them deemed relevant and qualified? So you're really picking 12 out of 23, or was 23 winnowed down to some subset of that really met the criteria? So 12 isn't out of 23. I mean,
right. So it's a competitive process altogether. So they're all evaluated by the total panel. All 23 are evaluated. So the criteria that we've been using are the professional qualifications, size and depth of the organization, obviously the cost of services. Sure. And then also we used some logistics in here, so proximity to where the work is projected to be as well, their ability to respond to that thing, and also in some cases, our own experience with those organizations.
So to me, the good news of that is there is real competitive bidding opportunities here. Someone just isn't getting locked and loaded and rolling over. I mean, there's good opportunity and there's good competition for
Absolutely.
us to look at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions for Joe?
No.
We're going to have a motion to approve. Judge, question, apologize.
Joe, if any of the board members might have missed it, I was made aware that the in-house staff in the Niagara LEM designed some intake changes and made them. Is that correct? That as part of the diversion at the intakes?
I'm not familiar with exactly what you're talking about. That's not an unlikely scenario. We do use in-house staff in the regional people to support the engineer, and most of the ideas on the work that we do from a capital work do come from the grassroots evaluation of the in-house staff at the sites. So I'm not exactly sure I can respond to the exact.
Where they collect the debris on the intake?
Also, the trash racks. The trash racks. Yeah. So there was. Yeah. So some of the a lot of these things, a lot of the assets we have are one-off type of assets. You don't see a lot of them. We belong to a lot of users groups, whether it's a pump storage users group or EPRI, where we get other experience from other utilities. So very often it's the eyes in the field that understand and see how these things are actually working. I mean, water's tough to manage sometimes. There's vortices and eddies and all different kinds of things. So when there are design ideas that say, why don't we try this? A lot of that does come from the regional staff, engineering staff, and actually skilled craft as well. We'll sometime opine on that, and we'll incorporate those designs in those as well. So that's not an unusual scenario for us.
Okay. Unless there's any other questions, a motion to approve the 12 contracts. Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
So next up, we've had a few years of under our belt of the Canal Corporation. You hear a lot of different things for the money we're spending and things like that. We thought we'd offer the board an update. In April of this year, we made some realignment in the organization. I've asked Phil Toyer, our Senior Vice President of Power Supply, to lead up the group in Canals from an operational standpoint. So I'm going to ask him to come up and give us an update there.
Super. All right, thanks, Joe. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Trustees, NYPA Executive Senior Management. My name is Phil Toy. I'm Senior Vice President of Power Supply. As Joe indicated, in April timeframe, I also took over operational responsibility for the New York State Canal Corporation. Over the last few years, our work has really focused on several key areas such as organizational alignment, safety, operational performance, portfolio management, and infrastructure modernization. We have implemented several best practices from NYPA, including safety training and procedures. Joe mentioned the electrical arc flash safety program at NYPA. We've begun training the Canal staff in that as well and implemented arc flash equipment and improvements in that area. From a safety culture and engagement standpoint, we've really made a lot of improvements implementing the tailgate talks that we do at NYPA. DART rate performance year to date is 3.4 at Canals. That's been trending down. In 2016, it was 5.4. So we've seen steady improvement in there at that area as well. Work management practices include the introduction of planners within the Canal organization to better plan work and develop standardized job plans and improve productivity and worker safety. We've also begun to integrate the NYPA portfolio management and budgeting practices within Canal for both capital as well as O&M budget planning purposes and project controls. Some of the infrastructure improvements which we've begun within Canals, we've modernized the vessel fleet at Canals, including work vessels and dredging equipment. We've also cleared about 80 acres of canal embankment for vegetation as well as animal burrows in the canal embankment. This threatened the integrity and safety of the infrastructure. We've made a lot of improvements there, and that work will continue over the next few years. A lock in Oswego, it's a 3-year, $30 million project, which is expected to continue this year and complete in 2020. That's winter work that we do in non-navigation season. We've also continued work on 8 trails projects that are part of the Empire State Trail Initiative. This will enable walking and biking along the entire system adjacent to our canals. Continual improvement to continue where we've gone as well as introduce some new areas. We're really looking and focusing on 4 areas: safety, work management, asset management, and financial performance. Each of these areas directly impacts the other. So as we implement asset management and a rigorous inspection program there, that allows us to identify the asset condition and address problems before they become emergent work. That allows us to better plan for capital and O&M work, enabling us to perform the planned work versus emergent work. This allows us to better plan the work from a job plan and safety performance, so that improves safety performance, and all of these result in better financial performance for the canals because we're getting ahead of the work and managing the work in a planned fashion rather than emergent fashion. As Joe said and I indicated, it's been since April that I've had this, so still learning a lot, but I will say that the engagement of both the Canals employees and the NYPA management and employees in this has been tremendous. Integrating the portfolio management, the project controls, both parties have worked well together. We've implemented a civil works task force within Canals that we use shared services employees from Canals and from NYPA to help there. The engagement and just across the board, the cooperation from both sides has been tremendous, and that's really helped improve the performance as well as just the collaboration and engagement with all the staff. It's been tremendous. So thank you, and if there's any questions.
Appreciate the update, Phil. So whether it's Phil, Gil, Joe, Kim, whatever, this is your year 3 we're into? This is our 3rd year?
3rd year.
Yeah, so
I mean, at this point, just give us kind of the big picture drive-by. We feel as though we've got our arms around it. We got a good handle on it. a little bit of that no more surprises stage.
I'm not going to guarantee that, but
and I get it, but at least we know where the surprises may come from now.
yeah. So our you know, I think it was April 16. I'm looking for Kim to validate the dates, but you know, as of really January of 17. So we had
Right.
all 17 and 18 kind of under our belt now
Right,
in terms
right.
of operating.
2 full years.
Two full
coming up
years,
on
2 full
3.
cycles, and some of the work that we do only has that pace of iteration once a year. You know, opening for navigation, closing for navigation.
Right.
So we don't get the benefit of a lot of iterations on this. But with that said, I think the last couple of years have been very educational for us. Phil touched on this shared services model. So we're basically using NIPA support staff in canals and some of the technical expertise. That has lent a different view of what we're going on. And I think today, with the controls meetings that we have in place from an operation portfolio management perspective in terms of financial planning, and also from our technical review, which is an area that we have significant competency in impounding water, that's what we do as well, that we have better visibility and control of at least the predictability of what we can anticipate more. There was a lot of things that we didn't know, and I think in the last couple of years we've discovered those. Again, I won't guarantee we're not going to be surprised, but I think we got a good handle on all of it now.
And our operational spends in the aggregate have been pretty much within the range we had anticipated. Capital, we've continued to need to get out in front of some projects sooner than we might have otherwise thought, but
Right. So from an operational perspective, we're right on. From a capital perspective, this new lens that we're putting on it has given us some motivation to expedite some work. So we have pulled in some work that was identified. I'll say was identified or otherwise listed, but wasn't really prioritized in a way that, you know, as Phil said, we got this now Civil Works Task Force, that kind of thing, where we get some more objectivity to the evaluation. And we engage other agencies in that as well, so DEC and others to help us assess that. And so I think, you know, the number has gone up in capital, but I think it's in control. And it's things that we would have spent money on.
And I think the key piece there from the capital standpoint is we've been addressing the emergent projects, but by implementing the rigorous inspection and asset management program, we're planning the work. So we have a little bit of a bump here for a few years while we deal with the emergent work as well as get ahead, so that hopefully in the future that emergent work will decrease, so we can have better control of it.
as we tie that into what will come out of the reimagine process and the like,
Yeah.
the benefits for the users and our ability to expand the utilization and usage and benefits of the canal system will hopefully exponentially increase.
Absolutely. So it's really we're finding all the synergies from everything that we're doing now. And as we hone in on, after we screen and evaluate the projects that will come out of the reimagine, it will only increase the value to the users and the people who live in the communities along the canal, while getting a better handle and our arms around the day-to-day operation of this.
But we
asset.
feel we got that pretty good handle
Absolutely.
at this point. So we're well positioned to launch the reimagine initiatives, whatever that turns out to be.
That's correct.
Okay, super.
Does Canals lend itself to our digitization program?
Well, they've already adopted some of that. So, and for example, in one area that we're always concerned about is flood warning and water levels. We have that being reported into our ISOC right now because we also have small hydros on the canal system. So we're always watching it anyway. So we've expanded our abilities there. We are also looking at increasing our visibility on some of the weather events. So we're collaborating with other agencies on Mesonet and other things so we can look at some of the micro weather issues that are going on because certain deluge in one area of the canal doesn't affect other areas, so we have to have visibility in the entire thing. So, and we're going to look for other ways as well as far as some of the monitoring, but mostly those are key areas we're working on right now, and we're going to look for other opportunities as well.
We're also going to introduce them to electronic bidding in 2020. So they'll be introduced to the REBA bidding platform as part of the digitization plan for canals.
Okay.
And work management, the work management's another one that Phil touched on, but this Maximal, you want to touch on that?
We'll be implementing Maximal, which is our work management, asset management software application at NIPA. We're implementing that there to help with the job plans and planning. So there's a spectrum of digitization efforts underway there.
Well, not unusual transactions of this sort and magnitude always takes a couple of years to really get your arms around it. So good work. Well done. Appreciate the update very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sarah, on the commercial side.
Good morning, everyone.
Customers happy?
Yes, trying, and they have to become ever increasingly happy with our new 2030 strategy. So I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary at NIPA, and hard to believe.
And you're still at the
That was
podium.
the only one. I know. So I share that mainly because I've really enjoyed the last year here, and I look forward to coming to work every day and working with the team, both my peers at the EMC level as well as all of the individuals in our commercial operations group. I inherited
That sounds like a setup for a bad news report.
Oh, no. Yes. And today I would like to, now I'm not Andrew Luck, and I don't support the Colts, although I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so nobody likes me. That being said, I'm hoping as we enter into the new year that I'll be evolving the commercial operations report to better articulate, what I see in the organization and what will support sharing with you the progress that we've made. That being said, my message here today is really consistent with what you've heard a year to date relative to the insights and the factors in the market that are ultimately impacting our gross margin. Our customers are more or less in line with what we anticipated in terms of their usage, while our generation is higher. So the amount that we can sell into the merchant market and get merchant revenues is higher than we budgeted. The electricity prices have been severely depressed this year relative to what we set in the budget and with the forward market curves back in September of last year. And so in the end, they're not completely offsetting each other. The fuel price, as you know, is a component into the electricity price. So whereas it's positive on the one hand, that it's lower, it also feeds into the spark spread and the prices that we see in the electricity market. So our merchant gross margin year to date is slightly under what we forecasted for the year. Although this is through July, we obviously every day forecast forward our mark to market. And we review our hedging opportunities, and we anticipate by the end of the year that we'll be within the range that we set for the gross margin, which is between $299 million and $346 million. Will likely be below the expected value that was set in Q4 of last year, which was around $324. We'll probably be slightly under there because I don't anticipate that we'll be able to completely recoup the softer electricity prices year to date through really the end of September. But we have done a very good job of executing on our hedging strategy, which really is putting a floor below it and narrowing the range at which we expect the numbers to come in. We work very closely with our economic development partners, led by Keith in the Clean Energy Solutions business. We have re-upped many of the contracts that have come to you for approval, which is extending our supply contracts over the next several years, 7 years. And along those lines, we have job creation and retention as part of that, as well as new capital committed, which is in the order of $28 billion to be invested in the state of New York over the next 5 to 7 years. I'm hoping that we'll be able to come back by the end of the year or early next year with some really great new investments and new customers in New York State that really will help drive further job creation. So stay tuned on that end. Energy efficiency, we had a great conversation at the Finance Committee. I think what you'll see here is very strong progress relative to fee capture and revenue increases over what we have forecasted and budgeted for the year. That's really a testament to all of the individuals in energy efficiency who are executing on these projects, both signing up new contracts with our customers as well as implementing them at a faster rate. So you'll see we're over 57% increase over what we anticipated in the budget. So that to me is exemplary of the progress that we're making in energy efficiency and clean energy solutions more broadly. keeping a tight focus on operating expenses and making sure that we remain flat and in line with our budget. So I'll look forward to coming back to you at the next board meeting and sharing a little bit more about the progress that we've made in energy efficiency and in the clean energy solutions business, and the impact that we have both on meeting the state goals and providing strong paybacks to our customers, so that you can see where all of the good funding and financing is going.
So 1 year later, how do you big picture feel? Skip the numbers, just in terms of tracking and trending relative to repositioning and redirecting the group. What's your overall sense with that benefit of a 12-month look back?
No, I think that it's positive, right? Again, as I had articulated in the past, I'm really looking at reversing the trajectory, and I think that with the new reorganization, with combining the account executives in economic development with the BD reps for some of our new services, we're able to market our products and services more effectively, as well as there's a bigger focus now, and again, in project management and looking at advancing both new ways of executing on contracts with design build, as well as having and strengthening a strong QA QC process there that will also see a tightening of cycle times and an even more strong execution on those projects. So overall, I'm very pleased with the direction it's going.
The pace of progress, the pace of change.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else before Keith pops up from other board? All right, great.
Okay, thank you.
Kudos again on your 1 year anniversary.
Thank you.
We look forward to years 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, that's good.
Thanks,
I
Sarah.
bought a plant, so I'm staying. It's in my office.
All right.
It's always a good sign, right?
There's a bad joke there somewhere, but I'll let it go. All right, Keith, economic development and
Yes,
making
sir.
the world a better place.
Well, let me start by saying, as a former employee of the National Football League, I favor all teams. And anything can happen on any given Sunday. I'm just saying.
Unless you're in Miami.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees, and everyone in attendance today. The first two items are regarding the Recharge New York Power Program. These items address both extensions and modifications to existing allocations and new allocations supporting over 3,700 jobs and $37 million in capital investment commitments. So first, regarding extensions and modifications, as recommended by the Economic Development Power Allocation Board on September 24th, 2019, the trustees are requested to approve 4 Recharge New York Power conditional contract extensions for the sale of 13.5 megawatts of Recharge New York Power to existing customers. These 4 existing RNY allocations include those companies who enrolled in the program in 2012 or year 1 and submitted extension applications that have been reviewed and evaluated by staff. The trustees are also requested to approve modifications to previously approved Recharge New York extension allocations requiring adjustments to awarded amounts and/or supplemental commitments. These contract extensions are conditioned upon compliance with the existing contract. The 4 extensions collectively support over 15,800 jobs and $105 million in capital investment commitments. The extension contract will continue to include compliance provisions that allow the authority to reduce RNY power allocations for those customers failing to meet their contractual commitments. The extension contract also incorporates a more developed approach by the authority to administer the RNY program in a manner that is consistent with the State Energy Plan and the Clean Energy Standard. So regarding the new allocations, again, as recommended by the Economic Development Power Allocation Board on September 24, 2019, the trustees are requested to approve 5.3 megawatts of RNY power to the following: 2 large business retention allocations totaling 0.9 megawatts, 3 large business expansion allocations totaling 2.3 megawatts, and 5 small business and not-for-profit based allocations totaling 2.1 megawatts. These allocations would collectively support the retention and creation of over 3,700 jobs and $37.6 million in capital investment commitments. The balance of available Recharge New York power to award is approximately 182 megawatts, of which 50% or 91 megawatts is hydropower. One way to replenish the program is through compliance action, which I have brought to you in previous meetings. The 10 allocations will be distributed to 9 customers throughout the state. These items are submitted for your approval. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, had a chance to review this. Judge, anything from the EdPAM
No.
perspective to
Yeah,
share?
we reviewed this Monday morning. No, Tuesday morning. And that was approved unanimously.
Yep.
And I think they're doing a good job in extending this for another 7 years for some and some new customers. There's some good news for the North Country.
There is.
Some of this, so,
Coming at you.
yeah, good.
I'll take that as a motion to approve.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next item requests that the trustees approve a 16,000 kilowatt allocation of preservation power to Confluent Energies, Inc., which is proposing to build a hydroponic greenhouse facility on 40 acres of property in Racina. The allocation would support the creation of at least 240 new jobs and a capital investment commitment of at least $110 million. The company is planning a 4-phase project that would allow them to produce leafy green vegetables, particularly lettuce, on a year-round basis. So here I'd like to point out to you that the project is also a direct outcome of our St. Lawrence County Economic Development Study and Implementation Plan that we launched a few years ago. The project represents one of our signature initiatives detailed in the plan that sets out to accelerate agriculture. More specifically, to identify and attract investors to construct commercial-scale greenhouse facilities capable of year-round operations. I am also proud to say that the project both exceeds projections and the time frame indicated in the plan, which is actually next year. I want to also recognize Patricia Wilson, our North Country Program Manager for Economic Development, for the amazing work she's doing in the North Country. This item also requests that the trustees authorize a public hearing on the proposed contract for Confluent Energies, Inc. Again, the item is submitted for your approval. I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
A very exciting project. It was great to see and read about, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, kudos to all involved. Any questions for Keith on that?
I believe it also utilizes some dormant industrial facilities as part of this project.
Yes, and so they signed a 60-year lease for that 40 acres.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Fantastic reuse of that vacant property.
All right, I'll give Judge credit for the motions. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, moving right along. The next item requests that the trustees approve a 2,000 kilowatt allocation of replacement power to Thinking Robot Studios, Inc., which is proposing to build a new medical device manufacturing facility in Buffalo. This allocation would support the creation of at least 88 new jobs and a capital investment commitment of over $83.8 million. I would like to point out that the average wages and benefits for these new jobs are over $130,000, so quite high. The company is planning a 3-phase project to construct a new 63,500 square foot facility that would specialize in the mass customization and manufacturing of medical devices utilizing industrial grade 3D printing, a remarkable technology. This item also requests that the trustees authorize a public hearing on the proposed contract for Thinking Robot Studios, Inc. Again, the item is submitted for your approval. I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Another terrific project. Home turf, all the more so, but it's wonderful to see and be able to act on.
I would move it as well.
All right, have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carried. And finally,
Last item.
compliance. Good guys, bad guys?
Good guys, bad guys. The next item is regarding the annual compliance review for expansion power, replacement power, and preservation power. Authority staff has conducted an annual compliance review of customers receiving expansion, replacement, and preservation power covering the report period of January 2018 through December 2018. Per the contract, these customers began submitting their compliance reports to the authority in February 2019. The compliance review examined customers' compliance in 3 areas: job retention, capital investment, and actual power utilization. Staff conducted a review of background information on these companies as well as an analysis of commitment levels reported, and in addition, staff is recommending enforcement of the contract commitments for specific customers who have failed to achieve at least a 90% compliance level for job retention commitments, capital investment commitments, and power utilization. This, again, is in accordance with the contract. This item requests that the trustees approve the reduction of allocations and or the modification of supplemental power commitment levels for 11 companies receiving Western New York hydropower. And I know you always ask me this question, so I'm going to give you the numbers. On a programmatic basis, we have exceeded job commitments by 141% of the actual commitment levels, and we've exceeded CapEx by 308% of the commitment levels indicated in the contract.
So we're much more than half full here.
We're way ahead.
What amounts to about a 10% non-compliance. That's dwarfed by the 90%, and the 90% is outperforming. So in the aggregate, the program's a resounding success.
It's an effective program. Yes.
One question that I had was, how does this compare to like last year? Is there like a trend? Are you seeing?
Yeah, it hovers around the 10% level year over year. It's pretty consistent.
At one time, when the economy was really soft, we were at 70%. Are all of those back up to the 90% area?
They are. Yeah, so that's a great point. Part of this annual process actually right-sizes the customer, pulls them back into compliance, and then we see them, continue that over the term of the contract.
And there's none that you've seen consistently, because obviously we're reducing. There's none that you've seen over the years that are consistently sort of the drag on meeting.
Atypical of those, they're usually leaving the state, okay. Unfortunately. Yeah. But we do work with them and try to right-size them along the way.
Yeah, I mean, we, as Judge referenced a couple of years back, accommodated, lowered the bar, all the rest of that.
That's right.
So
no, we're all back to 90%.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay. I have a motion then to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. As always, Keith, thanks very much. Appreciate your good work and excellent report.
Thank you.
All right, Adam.
Yep.
You're up. First act of the next phase and stage. Welcome aboard. We're happy to have you.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees, member of the public, and colleagues that are with us this morning. Today I'll be providing you with an update on IPA's financial performance for 2019. The slides we'll be using today are slightly different than the ones you've seen so far. We're going to try to do it so it tracks more closely to our financial statements that you see posted on our website. Before we get into the specifics, I just want to give you the main takeaway that we continue to track towards year-end net income targeted results. And we, for the full year, we are forecasting to come in just slightly above target. In terms of the core business drivers, while we continue to see significantly higher generation at our Niagara and St. Lawrence facilities, the favorable net income impact of those gains is dwarfed by the further softening of energy prices that we've been discussing with you this year, as Sarah mentioned in her report. Additionally, we're seeing unfavorable variances in margins driven by large industrial customers. The net results is an overall unfavorable generation margin compared to budget, both for the year-to-date results and for our year-end projections. As we see, for the first 7 months, we were projecting 38, we'll go back to the other slide, projecting $24 million in budget. We're going to end up at $38 million for a $14 million positive variance. This will reverse at year end, and we can move to the year end numbers. Next slide. As you can see, there's a reversal in the positive variance we had in operating expenses that reverses by year end, and the overall operating revenue trends continue as they were originally forecasted, but have come down since the last time we gave you the update on the 5+7. Again, more price compression, mostly seen in July, than we had originally forecast. So the end result is that while we're tracking just above budget and net income, it's really coming from a different source in terms of the outperformance in the non-operating income versus the underperformance in the operating income, driven by the lower prices. We're seeing some favorable results in the non-operating income based on where interest rates have been going, both on lower interest costs to NIPA and the interest that we projected based on our financing needs, and also on the mark-to-market of our investments based on the lower interest rates, which raises the value of those investments, but that will reverse by the time those investments mature. So I would just not focus that as something that's going to be realized in the end. So that's sort of the results. Just want to give you this sort of new layout that we're looking at so that you can see how the different components are either generating over budget or under budget versus the operating and the non-operating. And if there's any feedback from after you've looked at that and other information you want to see, be happy to take any other suggestions that you might have or any other questions you may have on the report.
One question that I had, obviously the layout looks fine. It seems we're doing pretty good around operating expenses. Do you expect that to stay? Is this about timing? How do you expect us to end up by year end?
So the operating expenses are going to be a little bit higher than we had anticipated, and some of those were some things that I would consider to be uncontrollable. We got a larger pension bill from the state controller based on the performance on the market, which is based on evaluation date of March 31st of this past year for their state's year end. Hopefully we'll see some of that reverse next year because the market seems to be doing better. And we had the same experience with our OPEB expense. Our OPEB expense was lower than we projected. We had a very conservative return on our investments, but because it even performed lower than that during the same measurement period the year prior, we saw a higher OPEB expense. We have slightly higher depreciation expense because certain assets were placed into service earlier than they were anticipated. And we also have a slightly higher O&M expense. That's somewhat of a timing in terms of some of the projects Joe's working on that has labor being charged to capital because it's not being charged at the rate we had forecast. It's lifting up the O&M expense on the budget side. If that makes sense.
So it isn't an operational spend that's causing that 30 million, flip in the last 4 months of the year.
No.
Okay.
I mean, the margin is so the margin is related, and you see the reductions in the purchases. So that's just price compression.
Right.
And on the operating side, these sort of other items that are not related to the actual operations of our facilities.
So as you've started looking ahead to 2020 and the operational trends, anything that gives you guys pause or concern in what you're currently seeing and how it impacts our run rate looking forward?
Again, I think it's mostly on the energy side in terms of where prices are.
Right.
But I don't think we see anything on the expense side that gives us too much cause for concern. I think that the low interest rate environment that we're in may give us some opportunities to save on the cost of our capital program and our financing. So we might be able to get some savings there as we go into the next year and do some potentially refinancings. But on the regular run rate, now really, in fact, we see some positive developments as our transmission projects start going into line and we start seeing that revenue come up because that's a really good, solid, increasing source of revenue that doesn't have the same volatility, say, as the energy prices do on our operating plants.
So I'm just looking at the 150 million shortfall relative to the year on the revenue, on the top line. So in terms of carrying that forward into 2020 and beyond, is that the beginning of a trend? Is that are we bottoming out? Are we able to manage that back to hedging programs? Otherwise, nothing that we should be concerned about in terms of the revenue squeeze as we look forward.
I think maybe I can answer that. I mean, over the long term, we've seen, pricing and margin compression in the wholesale market. So, part of our portfolio trajectory is to continue to diversify and to focus on the fixed income of transmission, and the project business development group is working on that. In the end, again, we're predominantly we have our bilateral contracts, which are at cost or cost plus, so those are at a pretty kind of fixed rate. in the end, I think we have a good process where we're running probabilistic analyses around both the power price forwards as well as the generation and the flows that we would expect from the market. And we're doing a good job of falling within the ranges and meeting the hedging strategies that we have. So again, when we set the budget, to some degree it's deterministic, it's a point in time, and you're reliant on the forwards. We can look at multiple public forwards, right? But in the end, the reality of weather and the other impacts, congestion or what have you, that might happen in the wholesale market real time is something that we have to bear. So the best that we can do really, again, is to have the probabilistic analysis, to have the cone of uncertainty, and ensure that we're trying to match as best as possible with our hedging and our transactions to narrow the uncertainty and meet the expected value.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with what Sarah said. I mean, our goal is really to try to minimize the volatility as best we can and try to get more predictability in terms of our forward-looking financial statements.
And you mentioned the pension expense that sort of came. You don't expect that to repeat itself next year? Like, what's your?
It depends on how the market does between now and March 31st of next year. But it's really, and then there's some smoothing. Right. If I did, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Very true.
But no, I hopefully it'll be better than we experienced last year. But that is completely something that we can control. But we're going to look in terms of looking back, in terms of how we budget for it, to make sure that we're, taking all those things into account and have a more realistic forecast. So we're going to try to be more, conservative in terms of how we're forecasting going forward.
Okay. Any other questions for Adam? All right, great. Thanks very much, Adam. Appreciate it. The transition, we had Finance Committee meeting this morning. Couple of items coming out of that committee that we need to bring forward to the full board for discussion and hopeful approval.
That's right, yeah.
Tracy, you want to update us?
Sure. A couple of items from the Finance Committee that met prior to the full board meeting. And we adopted the minutes, and we'd like to recommend to the board the adoption of a couple of resolutions, some specific items that relate to the authority's energy efficiency program, as well as the scheduled quarterly release of funds in support of the New York State Canal Corporation. We got Adam, with the assistance of Sarah, provided us an update, a short update on the authority's energy efficiency program, and what these programs are expected to do and have done in the past. The Finance Committee is currently recommending that the Board of Trustees approve and authorize two items. One is the increase in financial funding limit by $250 million through the allocation of up to $150 million from NYPA's operating account in support of financing the energy efficiency program, as well as an increase of $100 million in the borrowing capacity associated with the 2019 revolving credit agreement that's not materially different than the previously approved by the trustees. So that's the first item for approval by the full board. I don't know if we can take them one at a time, or if you want me to do them both, but that's the first one. And we probably, we need a motion.
Yeah.
A resolution on
a resolution,
both.
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take yours as a motion.
Right.
Dennis, a second. Judge, I think you sat in on some of this, so if you have any questions for us as a committee, otherwise, Adam, Sarah.
I have a lot of questions, but not as
relevant to that. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
And then the second item brought by Adam was to appoint a pre-qualified pool of financial institutions for a 5-year term to assist the authority in structuring a limited recourse project funding facility for the authority's energy efficiency program. Again, to assist the work that that Sarah and her team will give us a little bit more information about at our next committee meeting. So that's the second resolution that we'd like to get the full board to approve.
So we'll take that again as a motion, and Dennis with a second. And
I have no questions.
All right, great. We had a good discussion there. So all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Great. The final item is the release of funds in support of the New York State Canal Corporation. Adam and Joe Kessler provided a joint effort around this release that we would like. The Finance Committee is recommending that the Board of Trustees authorize the release of $21.6 million in scheduled funding to the Canal Corporation to support its ongoing operations for the fiscal year 2019. The amount requested is the final 25% of the $86.2 million in Canal Corporation's 2019 O&M budget, which the board approved in December of 2018. These funds represent the final quarterly installment for 2019. To date, the trustees have authorized $64.8 million for this purpose. So that's the final submission from the Finance Committee.
And Adam assured us they were going to come in under budget, so we're all set there, right? So, all right.
One way or another.
Right. I'll take that as a motion, and second from Dennis as well. Judge, as you've heard multiple times, where Canals is at, et cetera. So call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Tracy. Appreciate your efforts earlier this morning as well. All right, our last item is a noteworthy celebration for the continued great work of the organization and the team that's entering the room as we speak.
Exactly.
Ricardo, how are you?
Well, Chairman, how are you?
Set up you want to do here?
I'll just Ricardo will present the item, and we'll have some guests join us as well.
Okay.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ricardo Silva, Vice President of Strategic Operations. I'm here on behalf of a very dedicated and diverse group of individuals across the organization that have been working very steadfastly on this effort. Before I go any further, allow me to congratulate all of us on being the first electric utility in North America to achieve and receive the ISO 55001 certification. So congratulations, everyone.
Fantastic.
Having achieved this milestone as part of our Strategy 2020 is quite monumental. And as we look forward to the development and implementation of Strategy 2030, it validates that we are aligned in achieving our goals and have the proper system in place to help meet our customers' needs. To stay at the forefront, NYPA is using best practices to guide our thinking, ultimately allowing us to be more responsive and prepared so we can continue to deliver clean, reliable, safe, and cost-effective energy to our customers for the long term. ISO 55001 demonstrates a level of excellence and recognition within the industry and is an important differentiator in a competitive marketplace. Achieving this coveted certification means that we have a structured decision-making which drives enhanced planning processes, a clear justification for our investments, consistent work methodology, common platform for information and reporting, and most importantly, a commitment to continual improvement. Asset management is a merger of value creation and risk reduction, focusing on achieving the right balance among risk, cost, and performance. We do this by leveraging technology to improve our situational awareness, leading to better decision-making. Whether it be the communications backbone, our integrated smart operations center, or other analytics efforts, there's a common element of collecting data and turning it into meaningful insights for the people that need it. ISO 55001 is yet another piece of the equation to maximize the value from our generation and transmission assets, and look at ways to drive continual improvement as we have done throughout our history. By using a systematic process, we maximize the value from assets over their entire life cycle through a series of practices, procedures, and frameworks that guide consistent, defensible decision-making and risk management at every stage. Over the decades, generations of NYPA staff have stood alongside one another in the construction, operation, and maintenance of generation and transmission assets that will continue to provide a vital role in serving New York State. To achieve the certification, NYPA was subjected to an audit by an endorsed and independent assessor comprised of a team from Burns & McDonnell and EA Technology. Now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Davis, the CEO of EA Technology, who will present NYPA with the certificate.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, for that introduction. I've just flown over from the UK to be here with you today. I think I saw Boris Johnson flying the opposite direction. I think he's got harder things to deal with than I have at the moment.
It's okay if you stay.
Is it? Thank you so much. Great. I'll see you later. So on behalf of EA Technology and Burns & McDonnell's, our partners on this project, I would like to applaud NYPA and specifically the Strategic Asset Management team on a job well done. With ISO 55000 and with it PAS 55, organisations often go for the certificate simply for the certificate on the wall. It's impressive for trustees and for other shareholders and stakeholders and customers, but really that's not why you should pursue this sort of certification. Our auditors, as they went through this process and assessed your different systems and activities, it was super clear to these guys that it was much more than about the certification for NYPA. The systems that you've been designing, as I understand it, since 2014 were from the beginning intended to be adopted by and for the benefit of the whole organisation. And whilst ISO 55000 is a starting point, the framework and processes were clearly designed within this organisation for the benefit of all users and assisting them in doing their jobs more effectively. I should also add that NYPA exceeded the expectations and the standards of the ISO 55000 in a number of key areas, and that really is quite unusual. It is, as I say, quite common for a project team to develop a great asset management system that is largely ignored or at least just tolerated by the rest of the organisation. The buy-in from the company, from NYPA, is often the most difficult thing to achieve, and it was absolutely clear, as I say, that in this project that your project team had communicated and generated awareness way above many of the companies that we've audited. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear as well that we were greeted with hospitality and made to feel incredibly welcome, and this allowed us to focus on the details of the audit. In return, we got to witness one of the best asset management systems we've seen in many, many years of doing audits like this. The scoring was indeed some of the highest that we've ever seen in the many years. So, with my colleague approaching flowingly, seamlessly, so even though the certificate wasn't the goal of the activity, it is important. By the way, Andy McCarry was the lead auditor on the project, and it's actually his signature that's on the certificate, so I'm delighted that he was able to come over as well today. So I would hereby like to formally award the New York Power Authority with this Certificate of Conformance to ISO 55001-2014. It is indeed very well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much. Ricardo, come on in here. Yeah.
Joe.
Amanda, you should
Can I
be
have you go on that side?
Sure. Balance it out.
Come on.
New York Giants on the left side.
Oh, I got to go over there.
This is the painful bit, right?
Over there.
Over there?
Beautiful.
So you should really be
Beautiful.
covering this, I guess.
Declining height. That's fine.
One more. One more. Thank you. Good job.
You want to lead us off? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously an incredibly proud moment
Yeah.
for the organization.
Just extremely proud of the team. Congratulations to Joe Kessler, Ricardo De Silva, the entire team. If you recall, when we did our NYPA 2020 strategic plan back in 2012, 2013, one of the 6 strategic initiatives is smart asset management. And this was a trajectory that we put forth. And it's just so gratifying to arrived at this destination. It's a testament to all the hard work. And I'd like also to thank the board for your support. You know, it requires your guidance, it requires your oversight, the allocation of resources that are needed to get this done. But to have this, to have us as the first electric utility in North America to receive this honor is just unbelievable. You've always said that we should lean in, that we should be at the tip of the spear. And I think this is a manifestation of that. So I want to thank you and the entire board for your support.
I can only, reinforce that as you just referenced, Gil. I'm a big fan of leading from the front, and this is a tremendous validation of that. It's a credit to the entire organization, the culture, the fabric of this entire team, that it's embraced, and the level of passion and commitment for what you do and how you do it really makes an incredible difference each and every day. We see that every time we're here, and to get this kind of report card, and as I heard it, not only straight A's, but basically blew it out of the water. So kudos, Ricardo, Joe, Gil, for your continued leadership, the entire team. You make our job that much easier to support, and keep leaning in, because it's a whole lot more fun when you're running the lead dog in the race. So kudos, kudos to NYPA. Well done, everyone. Congratulations. Well, I think we can wrap the meeting up on that very much of a high note. We won't be back together as a group until middle of December. I think it's December 11th is our next official date. So happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the change in color in our landscape. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple months. Thanks so much for your time and attention today. If I can have a motion to officially end our meeting.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and go Bills.